The Minding Your Business podcast is brought to you by Brooks Brothers Consulting. Listen, if you are a new manager, a new executive, a new director, if you are maybe existing in those roles, but you're new to your company, let me be your mentor. Let me be your support system. Oftentimes, you don't get that kind of support within your company because there's an expectation of results and things like that. Nothing wrong with that, but you need an ace up your sleeve. You need a support system. And I have a program and the experience from my over 16 years in the industry and financial and banking credit union industry to be a value-added partner. So get with me, email me at ron@brooksbrothersconsulting.com. That's ron@brooksbrothersconsulting.com. Also visit www.brooksbrothersconsulting.com. Just this week, even, we're adding lending to our portfolio. So we are now connected with over 4,000 lenders around the country that we could provide personal and business lending solutions, whether that's working capital, whether that's equipment financing, equipment leasing, whether that's lines of credit personally, whether that's you're purchasing rental property and that sort of thing. Get with me ASAP. I've got lenders that are anxious to lend the right way. So we're not looking to just add debt for the sake of adding debt, but to add a vehicle for you to acquire an asset so that you can elevate yourself personally or elevate yourself professionally with your business. So make sure that you get with me, inbox me, or again, email me at the email address that I just gave. Okay, so today's episode is number 37. So glad to be at number 37 for a podcast that we started in August of 2017. Thank you so much for all your support, all your well wishes. If it's been something that you've hated, then just keep that to yourself and let it rot your insides, whatever. We're just dealing with love on this particular show. There's no business like minding your own. So you know what we do. We got to crank this music up, baby. Let's do it.
What we do here is go back.
And all right, so we had to get our intro on for the show. The Minding Your Business podcast comes to you every Friday. Make sure you check us out, www.themyb, M is in Mary, Y is in yellow, B is in boy, podcast.com, themybpodcast.com. Thank you so much. You can check us out, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, and everywhere else that you download great podcast content. So today's episode number 37, excited about this. This is the Black Panther edition. And you see I got my black on. For those that are not familiar, I'm going to stand up just a little bit. If you're on the Facebook Live, you can see. Shout out to my man Elliot Sales with Maine T-shirts. That's what we say down here in Memphis. For those that aren't familiar, we don't say man, we say Maine. So I am a man. This is the 50th edition, gold edition here, and it relates to the Dr. King days of the sanitation strike that occurred here in Memphis, which brought Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. here to Memphis, and ultimately where he experienced his ultimate demise here in Memphis, Tennessee. But supporting a local business owner, make sure you go to maintshirts.com. You can get yours. Do that today. Listen to the podcast and then do that today. maintshirts.com. My special guest today, as we talk about the Black Panther edition of the show, many of you have had now, hopefully, an opportunity to go see the movie. And if you hadn't, then you might want to turn this off because there may be a bit of a spoiler. And I never understood spoilers anyway because, hell, y'all so nosy, y'all go see the movie anyway. It don't matter what they tell you about it. I'm the type of person that you can tell me everything gonna happen in the movie and I still want to see it. Right? So I never understood that because it's not like the way you tell me is the way it's gonna play out in the movie because most folks either embellish it or do whatever. So I still have to visually see it to connect with it if it's in the movie format. So anyway, there's going to be a little bit of a spoiler alert. So if you hadn't had a chance to see the movie, do so if that's your desire. I think it's something that you'll enjoy in my opinion and the opinion of many others. But my guest today, all the way from Omaha, Nebraska, is a good friend, good brother, Gerald Jones, with buybackpodcast.com is where you can check out his podcast. It's the Buy Black Podcast. And it's all the way out of Omaha, Nebraska. And I want to invite him on. He's on the Facebook Live. I'd like to invite him on if I can. So Gerald, if you're out there, let me see if I can find you. And if I can find you, I will invite you on to be my guest here. Let's see. Gerald Jones. All right. So I believe I've sent out my request to you, Gerald. So if you look at that, just click on the button and you'll be able to join right here on the Minding Your Business podcast via Facebook Live. For those that are listening to the podcast, again, special guest that'll be joining us hopefully here shortly is Gerald Jones out of Omaha, Nebraska, the Buy Black podcast, one that along with the Startup Life and many, many others that you should add to your repertoire with great content and things of that nature for you to learn. So don't get intimidated just because it says Buy Black. You don't have to be black to listen to the podcast. Come on. It's 2018. Damn. You don't have to be black to listen to the podcast because there's great content across the board that you can get holistic perspective. I listen to many podcasts. Some I agree with and some that I don't on particular topics or with particular host point of views. But nonetheless, it is still worthwhile to gain that content to, again, have that holistic perspective. So, Gerald, are you able to join me, my brother? Hopefully, I've sent the invite to you. So just go down and let's see. He says he hasn't seen it come through yet. So let me try it again, my brother. Let's see. Yeah, it's showing invited, Gerald. So let's. Elliot, man, the shirt got me looking buff. Yeah, man, I lift, man. I'm not quite like my guy Willie Jackson, but yeah, man, I lift a little bit. But yeah, it does got me looking pretty alright, right? Y'all get this I Am a Main shirt. Make sure you pick that up and support Elliot Sales. He does a great job, man. Great service. Matter of fact, I can give this while we're waiting on Gerald to join. I want to quickly just give a quick shout out to Elliot. Elliot called me the other day, and this is where we talk about giving, with service, right? And this is not just to pump nobody's head up or gas nobody up, but I really like what Elliot did. So I ordered another shirt. I wasn't even aware of this shirt. I ordered another shirt that Elliot had available. Elliot didn't have it available, but rather than try to skate through it or try to underhand it, Elliot called me. Now, just listen how simple this is when you talk about service. Elliot gave me a phone call. I picked up. Elliot said, hey, man, listen, I apologize. I don't have that shirt available, but I do have this other shirt that's coming out, man. If you want to get first dibs on it, man, you can do that. But, man, I apologize. I don't have what you ordered. Man, with me, that ain't no problem. And I know Elliot. I trust Elliot. And I knew whatever he had for me when it was going to be off the chain. And it was, man. I got it last night. So shout out to him. But, that's just the level of service when you're doing business that you talk about. He didn't dodge it. He ain't send me no other shirt or just tell me it's a delay and I'm sitting there waiting for a month and all that. All he did was pick up the phone and call me. We had maybe a 2-3 minute conversation, and man, it's just phenomenal, and I got a phenomenal product. So that's what we talk about when we're talking about doing business with each other. So shout out to Elliot on that, man, because I appreciate really how you handled that. And I know that's how you handle things anyway, so I'm not surprised. But that's just phenomenal. So maintshirts.com, make sure you do that. Gerald, what's going on, brother? Did you get it? Or looking for Gerald Jones, the host of the Buy Black podcast out of Omaha, Nebraska. Hopefully he's able to... let's see, he got it as an invite to watch, but not to join. So let's see what's going on with that. Hang tight. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Request to be in your broadcast. Let's see. Gerald, you may be able to send me an actual request. Look down at the bottom of your screen and see if you're able to do that. I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying here, but I'm trying to see if there's something that I can do from my end. Doesn't look like there's anything I can do from my end to add you on. Let's see. Yeah, because see, that's just invite. I see what you're saying. That's inviting you to do that. Gerald, you can actually go in and send me an invite to join the podcast. So look down at the bottom. I'm not sure what kind of device that you're on, Gerald, but you may can look down and you'll see some kind of button that'll allow you to add on. It's probably got a person with something by the plus sign or something, or maybe like a person holding a little smaller picture or something like that you can make that request, Gerald. So there you are. All right, so I'm getting ready to have my guest join me, hopefully here in just a hot second. So Deborah Taylor, yes, that's great. It is great to hear. Good afternoon to you. Angela Sims, good afternoon. D. Hen, what's going on, brother? Great look at the school earlier. I got a chance to do something similar at Cordova High. So always great to see the work that DeJuan Hendricks is doing. Very, very connected here within the city and loves to move forward with some things positively. LT, the law. Make sure you get with Lawrence Thompson too, man. He's got a great podcast as well and great Facebook Live. So get with Lawrence Thompson today. Rod Selman, what's going on, brother? All right. So now I think I've got my guy joining me here. Gerald, you on? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm trying to. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, brother.
Okay, well then that works just fine. I was trying to connect with my headset. I got it covering up my camera right now. I was trying to do it from my desktop.
Yeah.
And it didn't give me the option to join you from my desktop, so I had to do it on the phone.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I'm actually here on the phone here, brother. That's how I've done it. I haven't even figured out how to do it from the desktop. So we're innovators like that, man. We jump on it with the phone first.
I'm trying to figure out the best ways to make it happen.
There you go. So for everybody, like I've been saying, this is Gerald Jones with the Buy Black podcast. Gerald, and you're out of Omaha, Nebraska, right, Gerald?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent a little time in Omaha, man. That's a nice, clean city, man. I don't even know if I saw one piece of trash on the ground when I was in downtown Omaha, man.
It's hard to find them here, man. I'm telling you, it is a great place to live. I love being up here. I moved from California over here for my job, and I like being closer to home to Arkansas, but I'm not trying to go all the way back home.
Right. I hear you, man. So, man, why don't you start? I know we want to get into some of the Black Panther dialogue that you and I have had a chance to kind of have online. I'm glad we're able to take this opportunity, man. So I appreciate you taking time. Why don't you tell everybody, the audience, a little bit about yourself and about your podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So, By Black Podcast, I started it it's March now. So, going on eight months ago, I started it July 5th, 2017, the 1-year anniversary of Austin Sterling being shot down in Baton Rouge. And then, of course, a day later, we have Philando Castile, who was shot in Minneapolis. And those things just happened at a time where I had just finished my degree. The last class I took was an entrepreneurship class, and I was looking for what's my next project going to be. Because, when you get done with school, it's like Ricky Bobby. Like, I don't know what to do with my hands.
Right.
And so I was going to start, just a small training consulting, firm or whatever, and eventually, go off and do that. But then those events happened, and I said, okay, I need to do something that's designed to help build up in the community. And what skills do I have? And the only skills I really have is, I'm great at building relationships with people. I'm great at understanding how to help people solve problems with branding, marketing, leadership, whatever. And it was like, so why don't I just try to connect people? I'll create a platform where I can connect people. And it took me about 9 months to figure out what that should look like.
Yeah.
But it was around this time last year that the idea hit me of, I need to have a podcast. What is the podcast going to be? The By Black Podcast kind of came to me after talking to a friend. And the whole idea was, I'm going to put black business owners in front of this audience. And those people are going to learn those businesses, see the values they bring, and then go out and buy from them. And then also I'm going to have this audience of people who maybe much like me spent their entire life thinking I'm just going to be a really great employee and get a good salary and I'll live comfortable.
Right.
And then eventually realize I want to do more. I want to own a business, but I don't think I can. Let me put these folks who've done it out in front of the audience, telling their stories, giving advice, and then let people see that it's just normal people out here just like them that can start a business, be successful, and if they can do it, then you can do it. And so it's really a twofold project of, I want our black business owners to get much more exposure to the market so people understand the value that we're bringing.
Yes.
But I also want so many more people to be able to see a black business owner that doesn't already have a $1 billion industry behind them. That's not a Damon John or Jay-Z or whoever it is.
Right.
Like, this is literally the person right down the street, and they're learning the same way that you're going to have to learn. So you can do it. And so it's really twofold intended to do that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Definitely with you there. And so, for people that want to check out the podcast, how can they do so? So they're here in Memphis or wherever they are. How can they do so?
The easiest way, I actually dropped a link in the comments for the video. That link is to byblackpodcast.com/app. If you click on that link, it'll take you directly to my site, and you can pick either Apple or Android, whatever kind of phone you got. Click on the link associated with that. It'll download my app right to your phone. From that app, you get all the episodes, you get bonus content, and you can call me or email me directly from the app. It's all right there. So that's my virtual business card, man. You download the app, you got me.
There you go, man. That's phenomenal, man. So I encourage everybody, if you're listening to this podcast, again, our guest is Gerald Jones with the By Black Podcast. That's byblackpodcast.com. And make sure you download the app. I need to do that as soon as the show's over. And I encourage everybody to go ahead and do that now as you're listening or as you're engaging with us on Facebook Live. So thank you for that, Gerald. So let's get into some of the Black Panther. So you've had a chance to see Black Panther, right?
Yeah, I've seen it. I saw it 2 times.
Okay, yeah. So I saw it twice. I saw it as a pre-screen the day before it was released. And man, I saw it last Friday. So what were just your overall general thoughts, on it, Gerald, before we get specific?
For me, overall with the movie, it achieved much more than I expected it to. I never knew about the character. I'm not a comic book person. So when I heard about this coming out, I heard about it through all the social media and all the build-up that we gave it,
right.
How huge it was going to be for the community. And so I was hoping that it would deliver. And to me, my overall thoughts, we can get into all the details, but overall it delivered and much more what people hyped it up to be and what we really needed and expected it to be.
Yeah. Absolutely. I would agree with that. I thought that I'm not a huge comic book guy, man, but I was somewhat familiar with the character just through natural, when you start digging into some of the Marvel stuff, and then you're like, okay, Black Panther, some years ago. Then he was in kind of as a cameo in the Captain America Civil War movie, which, I got a chance to kind of see. So it's like, oh, okay, well, I know that's coming soon. So that kind of started, I think, some of the initial hype with the comic book heads. And then, like you say, as it got closer and closer to the date and the advertising increased on it, it just really blew up. And then by the time it got to the release date, man, we had just gone plumb crazy with it.
Absolutely.
And
for good reason, though.
Yeah, exactly. For good reason. So, so let's look at it from the business perspective, if we can, Gerald. What do you see as, obviously, from a numbers perspective, it's, well over 700 million. The budget for the movie was 200 million. So obviously they made their money, hand over fist, way over, above budget. And this is without it even being released, Gerald, in China. So China doesn't release until, I think, March the 9th. And everybody,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's been released around the world with the exception of China. And so I found that very interesting considering the population of China, although a lot of it's very rural, and within the cities there's a dense population. But, where do you see the impact of it from a business perspective? And again, kind of maybe relating that to the Black community.
So from my perspective, when I'm looking at it, the things that I've seen come out of this, obviously Disney is a huge corporation. They own pretty much everything. Marvel is a huge franchise. And so there's a lot of IP wrapped around that. And those folks are going to get their coins, right? They put out an incredible movie. And then the cast that they put inside of this, that almost all Black cast, they're going to be getting their coins, right? So that's a win-win in that situation. And I've heard people complaining, the super woke, I call them the super woke friends, right? The Black superheroes.
Right.
Get online and they're like, why are you giving your money to Disney and Marvel and all this kind of stuff? It's like, look, bro, that's an all Black cast. Those folks are going to be getting coins from us supporting that. So yeah, that's just life. The bigger companies, yeah, they're not Black-owned companies, but they have entire crews there that are Black that are getting money. So that's one thing. The thing that I'm seeing kind of more at the local level, though, is the amount of merchandise that's coming out of this, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
People can create original art based on a movie like this, and then put that on the T-shirts, put that onto hoodies. I mean, before the movie even released, I already had ordered a hoodie that I saw on a Facebook ad for like $60. I didn't care. It looked good. I was getting it, right?
Right.
So, I mean, there's opportunities like that for individuals who are creative, who can create an original spin on something that was from the movie, and boom, turn that into money, turn that into a business. So,
right.
I mean, from the initial perspective, I look at it and just say, there's opportunity there. Whenever you see something that's popular that actually hits, and it hits people emotionally like that, and then there's so many key quotes and things that came out of that movie, I mean, we got to be looking at it and saying, okay, how can I capitalize on this? Right? How can I go out and build some business off of this in a legal way? Those are the first things that I saw come out of it, even within the first weeks before the movie came out.
Yeah, absolutely. So you touched on several good points there, Gerald, that I want to expound on, where you talk about the merchandising and things like that, where it's created, like popular movies tend to do, but this is done so for, several Black business owners, where they've been able to, capitalize off the attention and the, just the fanfare of it, like you say, in a positive way. Even here locally, there's a chocolatier, Philip Ashley Ricks. I'm not sure if he's watching on Facebook Live, or he might listen to the podcast later, but he's a chocolatier here that has his own versions of very specialized chocolates that he's done based on the movie and based on artifacts and technology, from the movie. There's been several, like you said, from the merchandising, all from clothing to like say podcasts that have gotten into it, to people have started shows off of it. People have been able to dig a little bit more into the travel and some of the technology. Matter of fact, right here in Memphis, Memphis was one of the cities Gerald W was approved for $1 million from Disney to start up a STEM kind of facility here based on the technology from the movie. And so
I saw that post that you made earlier. That was incredible.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, so I know,
and that's the really cool thing about this is that you think about how art inspires life that way, right?
Right.
We talk about in Star Trek, 30, 40 years ago, they had all this technology that we have now. That's because somebody back then envisioned this thing in their head, and they just made it up on screen. Like, this is just something we're using, and then you can turn around and however much longer after that it is that the technology catches up, you got engineers who can actually build that thing and turn it into an industry. Well, now in 2018, we're literally in that spot of they just made up a bunch of stuff that they put on screen in Black Panther, and I guarantee you there's already engineers that are out there, and they're coding that stuff. They're trying to figure out how can I make that real, and it's not going to be 30, 40 years. It'll be like 2-3 years that you've got some kind of crazy hologram thing that they built on screen, because all it takes is a creative mind tied with an engineering mind, and you can build things that change the world.
Right.
Which is kind of how technology has boomed. So I thought it was really cool that Memphis is getting taking that initial popularity and then capitalizing on that to build something that is going to work for the community in the long term.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Gerald, and for the listeners, I want to share some facts from a business perspective that I pulled up from kind of around the world. I want to get your thoughts on this. Of course, the movie's done very well in America. Of course, that's without question. But what's interesting is when you go around the world, I'm going to read you a few facts. So in the UK, so far, it's generated $44 million, $43.8 million has been generated in the UK. Korea, 38.1 million. Brazil, 20.6 million. Australia, 18.8 million. Mexico, 18.8 million. France, 17.5 million. Germany, 12 million. Taiwan, 11.3 million. Indonesia, think of Indonesia and the population, 10.5 million. And Malaysia, 8.4 million. And Malaysia, we're hugely rural. $8.4 million that is generated so far. And the movie just came out February 16th. Just to compare, Star Wars The Last Jedi so far has generated $1.3 billion. And it came out in mid-December. So it's been out now, let's just call it, not quite 90 days. Let's just call it, 65 days to 70 days. So really twice the time that, or more than twice the time that Black Panther has been out. Black Panther's at $760 million overall, and then Star Wars, which has been out, you're talking about 40 years of fan followership through, and when you put that in movies terms, that's a lot of generations of people, right? Think of the who were the first people to see Star Wars? That's early baby boomers, right? So what are your thoughts as you see it, the global piece of it, and particularly in countries where we don't have huge population, we being, blacks, don't have huge population, but it's still doing very well with an all-black cast, mostly all-black cast except for one character?
Well, I would say we may not have a huge population, but blackness is consumed around the globe.
It is.
At a higher rate probably than any other culture. And that's mainly because of the fact that, the United States exports all of its media around the globe, right? And then we are the feature of quite a bit of the media that goes out from the United States to the rest of the world. And that's a positive and a negative thing for us, right? Because we don't control that media. We don't control that image of us that's presented. And so a lot of the images that the rest of the world gets of us are not positive. They're more negative. They're more gangster glorified and all of that. And then when we travel, around the globe, we find out just exactly what the rest of the world sees in us that may not be accurate, right?
Right.
But because of that, because of the popularity of blackness in media around the world, when you have an entire movie production that goes out like this with the budget that it has, which is already, I mean, they make phenomenal movies anyway.
Exactly.
People are going to go see it. I think that it was set up for success in all these other areas because they don't have any historical context to what's going on in America. I mean, and that's me generalizing. I'm sure people, elsewhere do. But as far as the idea of, well, this movie is so important because it's putting black people in a great light away from this, that, and the other, they may not have that same perspective. What they do have a perspective of is these people who I consume all the time, who I love, who I emulate, who are my heroes, even though they're not always a positive view, but that's the way it happens around the world. There's about to be an entire production done by Marvel that's featuring all of these people. Heck yes, I'm going to go see it because blackness is cool.
Right.
And this movie just went and it took all the coolest pieces of being black and then stacked them on top of also being the most smart, the most empowered, the most wealthy, and also we cooler than anybody else on the globe.
Right.
Just deal with it. I mean, I think it was an incredible message, but I think it's a message that outside of the United States, they want to see it just as much as we do because they love what it is to be us. Everybody wants to be us or like us in some way and consume it. It only makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And we just had someone, Nathaniel Crawford, just gave this comment that I want to share with you. Everyone wants black culture. They just don't always get it from black people. Black Panther is changing that. And that's something that it speaks to what you just said, Gerald. But I want to expound on that for a quick second because, one of the things that I hope comes from the movie, so from a business perspective, and then we'll get culturally, is that from a business standpoint that you earlier spoke of kind of that process. I think in terms of process. I'm a Six Sigma kind of guy, so I think in terms of, A, B, C, D going down almost like an assembly line. And of course, the front end of the movie is still non-black, as you mentioned. Marvel executives and their vendors and things like that are the front load engine of the movie. And then we're covering a big part of the back end, which is the director, the acting, and some of that. And what I hope that inspires is that we're able to get involved in the front end of it, so that the entire process is us and not just the maybe the latter 50%, or maybe even 60%, however you want to do that. But the front end of it, so from the theater, we don't have theaters, right? So you're relying on Malco and some of the other theater chains and things like that. So, I want to get your thoughts on that because one of the things I hope it would inspire is that going forward, and even when you look at the Monique situation with Netflix and all this kind of thing, that hopefully Black Panther is a sign of, let's get involved through the entire process. So the entire process then is black and not just certain pieces of it. Particularly only the front end of it with the parts that you see, which is the actors and maybe the director and whatnot.
And in principle, that's the exact same thing that we see with the NFL and the NBA and any other major sports organization, right? You see the athletes and you see those $1 million paydays that they're getting, but that's just
that's
a fraction of the money that's floating, right? Same thing with the actors. You see these big paydays they're getting. That's just a portion of what's being generated, but it's still good, right? But in order to change the future, we have to take control of that media. Are you familiar with Dr. Claude Anderson and his concept of powernomics?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a Facebook group of men that's run by a man named George Middleton. He's got a book called Black. Is Beliefs Limiting Authentic Cultural Knowledge is the name of this book. But he has a group called it's called Flock, which is 5 levels of control, right? Which is Dr. Claude Anderson's thing, talking about the 5 levels of control, starting with economic, then moving to political, moving to justice, and then media, and then education, right? And that media is exactly what you're talking about. If you don't control the media, you don't control your image. Right. If you don't own the platform, then you don't have any say on how you are presented in that platform. And you have to hope that something comes along where the people in power say, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give $220 million to this black director who's only on his third movie, and we're going to give him carte blanche to create his vision.
Whatever, right.
And he's just going to go out and do it. You have to hope that you have people in the positions who see the value of doing that,
right,
to give us the platform to make something like this happen. But what we got to have in the future is eventually we need to not need that. We need to be in a position where we own that media platform and can say, this is how blackness is going to be represented.
Right.
This is how we are going to be put out into the world, because we have to control our image if we're going to be able to control our future, right?
Yeah.
And so I hope that out of the conversations we have behind Black Panther, that there are more people who get that. I love the podcasting world for this exact reason, because guess what you have right now? You have a media platform, right? Creating a podcast is literally creating a media platform from scratch, and you get to control everything about how that content presents you, your brand, your personality, and your blackness if you've got a black podcast.
Right.
Nobody's coming in and saying you can't say that, you can't do this, we're going to have to pull the plug on it. Bro, it doesn't cost me that much to run this. All I'm doing is going out here and I got my message, and I'm going to build an audience, and we're all going to be on the same page about what it means to be us.
Right.
This is a start, right? Podcasting is a place to start, and eventually we got to move, just like you said, into those other arenas. We got to get more radio stations that we control. We got to get more television stations we control. We got to create our own movie production companies that we control. And of course, it's going to start smaller because we're starting from that deficit.
Right.
But it can be done.
Yeah.
And it has to be done in order for us to really take control of that image, because, like we were saying earlier, there's a global image of what blackness is, and it is mainly based around the thug African American.
Right.
To the point that even in Africa, our African brothers and sisters come over here and they don't want to have nothing to do with us, because all they've seen is this negative image of us that's been put out there.
Exactly.
When we take control of that image, we can start pushing out a positive view of what it is to be black. Not that whole, what is that, politics of respect or whatever that stuff people like.
Yeah.
Right? We ain't talking about that.
Nah.
But the fact that we can have our swag, we can have our vernacular, we can have our ebonics, and we can still walk into a room and be as intelligent or better or smarter or more prepared to go and run things as you, and still maintain that coolness that it is to be us. There's nobody else in the world that can do that, right? And we have to own the media to be able to put us out there that way.
Yeah.
Black Panther did a great job of it, but he can't stop there, because it's still dependent on somebody else seeing the vision, using their resources to help us. We got to have our own resources. We got to just do it ourselves.
No, definitely agree. And that was one of the big points that I took away, definitely, Gerald. And Nathaniel makes another comment, says we need to use our financial and cultural leverage. And Nathaniel, you're exactly right. That's really what Gerald was speaking to, is that it's got to continue, and we got to be able to have the leverage. And Gerald's also right in terms of podcasting. One of the things that influenced me with that was the ability to create a platform, not just for myself, kind of like you, Gerald. You create it for others, to have a very authentic, very true, podcast of who we are, as opposed to, again, jumping on someone else's wagon, to hope that they allow us creative control. And then when they don't, we get upset, we get pissed off. And that's kind of been our story in America for the last, greater part of 100 years or so. So, I do want to get to the cultural piece of it with you, Gerald. And just to let everybody know, again, this is Gerald Jones with the Buy Black Podcast, buyblackpodcast.com. Make sure you check out and download the app today. Today as in today. I want to play a snippet of a scene that's has a quote in it. And this is T'Challa, who is the Black Panther, and Killmonger, who is played by Michael B. Jordan. And what I want to do is I want to play this little snippet and get your thoughts on this scene here. So I want everybody to listen to this real quick. It's a little bit of feedback.
we can still hear you. Why? So you just lock me up? No. Just bury me in the ocean with my ancestors that jumped from the ships. Because they knew death was better than bondage.
What would you say is the your thoughts on that particular line? The last line of him, kind of suggesting or stating that, bury me in the ocean with my ancestors because they recognized freedom, was better than bondage.
So I would say I want to turn it back on you and ask the question: what angle we want to go with this one at? Because there's so many different ways to break it down.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start just from a cultural awareness piece, because obviously that's not a phrase that I think most of us would say some could possibly say, but I don't think it's anything that we weren't aware of. Obviously, I think anybody that studied any snippet of Black history in terms of the migration or transition across the Atlantic understands that. That's how we were transported here to this land. But I think, what I wanted to more touch on, assuming that that's something that people have an awareness of, is what's the cultural impact. So we hear that, right? And then we kind of take it. And again, sometimes from a social media standpoint, we sensationalize things for a moment until the next shiny object comes up, and then our attention goes to that. But what do you see from a cultural standpoint of the impact of a line like that a lot of people, in their opinion, have regarded as a very powerful line in the movie?
Yeah, so it was a powerful line. I think from a cultural standpoint of people who are already familiar with that history of the slave trade, I'll be honest, I feel like I won't even say out of context, but taken by a person with the wrong mentality, that can be a very dangerous line. Because, if you take the fullness of what his character represented, right? He was not only completely and absolutely hateful towards the rest of the world, right, because of the oppression of Black people, but he was also bitter, resentful, and hateful towards Wakanda. For the king having taken away, and spoilers, or if y'all haven't seen it yet, too late, I'm sorry. But, the king having killed his father and then just left him there to fend for himself, he was hateful towards both sides. He had a crash and burn it all mentality. Right. And so, in his mind, and not even in his mind, his entire life's actions were, I'm going to do whatever I have to do to get revenge on the people who abandoned me, and to use what they have available to destroy the people who are oppressing, Black people around the globe. So I mean, he was 100% on I'm gonna do whatever I have to do. I'm gonna hurt whoever I have to hurt in order to get my revenge, in order to put us in the position where I want us to be. And in the end of it, the options of, live and potentially see a better future, or die right now because you failed to avenge, yourself or your father or whatever it was. The choice was, no, I'm just going to die because you're not going to put me in chains. Now, I know what they meant to do with that, but from the standpoint of putting that into the minds of somebody now who's going to look and say, yeah, death is better than bondage, and we still in bondage, so, revolution time. Like,
right.
Not helpful.
Right.
Not right. That in the wrong hands, that's just, they're going to, it's going to go to some people's brains the wrong way.
Right.
And that, I don't think is productive, because the revolution is not beyond televised. It's Facebook Live, right?
Right.
And the revolution doesn't have to have a single thing to do with a gun today. The revolution is already happening. And we talk about the super woke friends, right? But we are conscious. As a community, we're becoming more conscious. We're becoming more awake to the constructs that are around us. And we have the ability to change it piece by piece. And we're coming together to do that. So, I would say community is better than bondage, right? That is not the option right now.
Right.
Fighting is not the option, and then death is not the option. It's literally looking and saying, we have had the power this entire time. A movie like this just brings it to the surface. Now, what do we do afterwards? We come to each other, we recognize, we're in a form of bondage, but we also have more power now. And that power grows the more that we build with each other to take advantage, to leverage, like Nathaniel said, the power that we have. No, I'm not ready to die because there's too many people behind me that need what I have to give, and too many people by my side who's going to depend on me to be there for them. So I'm sorry, bro, I can't get you.
Right. Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm not ready to die either. I'm ready to more unify and kind of bring together. So I'm definitely with you there. One of the things that came as we continue on the theme of culture, Gerald, is the debate between the motives, right? You kind of touched on that. So you've got Black Panther, T'Challa, and you've got Killmonger. And some people have given a parallel to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and how for much of their kind of latter lives, they had what many have described as contrasting perspectives or approaches to how to solve the ails of the community. And of course, in the movie, that kind of manifested. Whether you want to make that link to those two gentlemen or not is people's choice. But what does play out is you've got a contrasting, and both make valid points. Obviously, Black Panther makes a point of, if you expose ourselves to the rest of the world, they have a corrupt way of taking that and using it for a greater evil. Right, that could threaten us as well as the rest of the world. And like you described, Killmonger is kind of driven by pain, within himself, but he also sees how the rest of the world has suffered by not having the resources that Wakanda has, that could provide for the rest of the world to solve those ails. And in order to solve those ails, though, requires a revolution against, like you say, the oppressor. What's your thoughts on that argument? And I'll even ask you, where do you fall in that line in terms of, is there one side that you kind of fits your perspective or not, and why?
Yeah. I love that you asked me that, because you asked me anything about Malcolm, and I'm going to get to talking on you. So I, on the very basis of that whole argument people are making, disagree with it 100%. All right? Malcolm X is nowhere to be seen in this. I'm sorry. Scratch that backwards.
Yeah.
Martin Luther King is nowhere to be seen in this movie, right? This whole thing, T'Challa is Martin and Killmonger is Malcolm. No, T'Challa is Malcolm, and Killmonger is Malcolm.
Right.
Martin was nowhere in this movie, right? If you understood what Malcolm X was about, Malcolm X was about, why are we concerned with what these folks are doing out here? We need to take care of our community.
Right.
Seek the love and support from this other community out here who's oppressing you. You need to turn inwards, love yourself, take care of your own community, right? Take care of each other, educate your own kids, take care of your own resources, support your own businesses. Do that all internally. Don't be worried about what they're doing out there.
Right.
That was T'Challa before meeting Killmonger, right? T'Challa was Malcolm before he left the nation, right?
Yeah.
And even then, it wasn't about even Malcolm back in the day. It was about defense. We were going to be armed to defend ourselves. You come in our community, you harm us, we got you. But we're not coming out looking for you, right? And so when you take Malcolm before he left the nation, and then Malcolm after he left the nation is really T'Challa after he met Killmonger, right? Because after T'Challa met Killmonger, he realized, oh, I got brothers and sisters all over the world who need what I've got. We need to go out and we need to connect with them. This villain opened my eyes to see that there are so many more people in the world who need what we need, and need this brotherhood and this sisterhood, and we're going to give it to them. Thank you for opening my eyes. But throughout this entire movie, Malcolm was dead center in who T'Challa was. Killmonger, who was I talking to? I think I was on Mocha Menace podcast with Stephanie Williams, her great podcast, by the way.
Yeah, definitely.
I was on with her, and then I was on with her and Ron's gonna kill me.
Yeah.
Anyway, the Why So Serious podcast, right? Brandon Carr. So Brandon Carr with the Why So Serious podcast, we did a Black Panther review, and on that episode, Brandon brought out talking about and then trying to remember the name, I completely forgot what I was about to say. So forget that, I'll come back to it.
Okay.
But the whole point, I lost it. It's so gone now. All right, never mind. Quit.
Yeah.
That's enough. I'll come back to it if I remember it.
Okay.
I was on a roll.
Yeah, well, yeah, you definitely on a roll. So I would add in, I didn't score. I can agree with that. I didn't see a lot of Martin in as far as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and really either character, and it really I didn't see much of a villain. To be honest with you, in the movie, which is very unique. And some people have come out, even on social media, I've seen where they felt, Killmonger wasn't necessarily a villain. I can kind of side with his perspective, and that you saw a lot of that. I saw both points, even to the former king, T'Challa's dad, the former king, where, like you say, when he got that perspective, and he confronts him as to, why would you do that? Why didn't you go after this people, and why didn't you help, and things like that. And so I felt it very interesting that in a, say 2-hour movie, there really wasn't a villain. There was perspective, but there really wasn't like a villain. Whereas most movies, obviously, there's a protagonist, an antagonist, and blah 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 blah. That's been motion pictures for 120 years, right? But this movie was unique with that.
The thing that I was going to say, what Brandon said when we were recording that review, he said Killmonger is who all these super woke dudes think they sound like,
right?
But they're not that smart,
right?
That's basically, and it's exactly what you just said, right? He wasn't a villain. He was what all these guys who think they're out here, hotepping it up.
Right.
That's what they think they sound like, right?
Right.
But they don't sound as smart as he does with the way that he lays it out. But you're right. It wasn't that he was a villain. He was consumed with pain.
Right.
Externally and internally, right? Outside the community and inside the community. And so the way that he was trying to go about it was all wrong. But if you think about it, what's the difference between Killmonger and Lupita's character, Nakia, right? Because both of them had the same exact message.
Right, they did.
Both of them were like, it's 2 billion people out here who need what Wakanda has to give. I need you to open up, and I need you to start supporting. They were literally the exact same message. It was just one of them had love in her heart, and the other one had hatred in his heart.
Yeah.
But they wanted the same thing. Both of them ended up playing on T'Challa and teaching him that he needed to see the world a different way. And I'm telling you, that's Malcolm all day long. It was after Malcolm went and he did the Hajj that he realized that there was a brotherhood and sisterhood globally that he needed to connect to in Sunni Islam outside of just the nation of Islam.
Right.
So I saw Malcolm all up and down this movie, which is another reason that I loved it, because that's my guy right there. If I had one person I could go back in history to sit down and talk to, it would be Malcolm X.
Malcolm X. Yeah, dig that, definitely. And again, Gerald Jones is our guest on the Minding Your Business podcast. Visit www.buyblackpodcast.com and make sure that you download the app as well in your app store. So, Gerald, let's talk too quickly about the female characters. So we've talked about the male characters, but obviously, one of the huge draws was the female characters. And from a cultural perspective, in terms of their, appearance, which, women's appearance is always scrutinized and things like that. But one of the things that I found was, in this movie was when you've got strong men characters and then you got equally as strong, women characters. And so what were your thoughts on, the women characters within the movie, which, there were a slew of, and they had some, I thought some really good acting, some really good lines. We also had, young lady Corinne Bernans, who's actually went to University of Memphis when I was there, who was in the movie as well, one of the female warriors. That was featured in the movie. So what's some of your thoughts on, the women characterization of black women in the movie?
I would say that the movie Black Panther, that quote unquote starred Chadwick Boseman as Black Panther, he was the best supporting actor, right? The women were the movie,
right?
I mean, especially the three women, the general, his sister, and then his love interest, right? Lupita Nyong'o's character.
Right.
Those three women, they were Wakanda, right? Of course, and then with Angela Bassett being the Queen Mother, she was like the matriarch of it all.
Right.
But those three women represented everything in that society, right? They were the brains, they were the brawn, and they were the love, support, and wisdom that guided the men who were just running all over the place trying to fight each other, right? How much different is that from real life in the black community?
Right.
I mean, I loved the way that they represented the women. It was truth. It was truth. The way that when the black community thrives, it is because we recognize as men that there's really nothing that we can do the right way unless we have women who are right there telling us, no, you're wrong, or you must have lost your mind if you think you're going to put your hands on my man. I'm about to punch a hole in your throat, like Denai Guerrero's character did at one point in the movie. And just being that matriarchal wisdom and stability like Angela Bassett was. I mean, you could just tell that entire society, it ebbed and flowed with the direction that the women went. They
Right.
controlled all of it. They directed all of it. And the men were just kind of there to, yes, dear. Right? And that works.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, that even in the in the first battle where he battles Mobuku, and I'll get to him in a second because he's got his own kind of lane within this that I'll touch on with you. But if you look at this, T'Challa's influence, from his mother. Remember in that first battle where he's taking a little bit of an L, through that. And, he kind of glances up to her and they got kind of a slow scene and she makes the comment of, remember who you are, Yeah. And, that inspires him.
Who you are.
Right. And you notice that's how black women have played that role with black men since the very beginning. Right. Mm-hmm. A lot of the influence doesn't come from another brother or even a dad in a lot of cases or a father figure. It's women. It's the woman that is the support system and is that kind of rock that believes, in black men. And you saw that manifested in that scene. And like you said, in a movie where essentially the defenders and the Royal Guard is all women. Right. So and if you think of the final battle, right, there are more women on the battlefield than there was men. Of course, you had the brother that kind of flip flop that turn, which you have that in everything. And they tried to say that man's had the little joke on meme on Facebook where they assigning D9. Yeah, like come on, man. Hey, I don't even want to get that. That's almost like another podcast, man. Yeah, and I know it's for fun though. It's all love for fun. Yeah. Oh yeah, it was all. So a few of them were off, but it was funny though. It was definitely funny. But from the woman's standpoint, when you have women in leadership as a general, you've got women as that support system, Gerald. You've got a matriarch who's holding it down. You got kind of the fun-loving tech sister, which that's often missed in that industry. If we admit that when you look in the tech industry, you look in STEM programs and things like that, black women are often not represented or underrepresented. And then, you've got just a slew again of characters that exude, beauty and strength. And the beauty piece of it then is interesting to me. Because similar to what you saw in the black community, I've always made this joke, right? That, light-skinned brothers kind of died with Wesley, in New Jack City. When Wesley hit Christopher Williams in the hand with the knife, you know what I mean? And then when he took care of G Money, that was it was a wrap for the light-skinned brothers. Yeah, and we were back, man. We had all that I'll be sure shit. Brothers with the Pierre with the curl and all this, and the bright skin. And then Wesley came and took care of that and brought us back, man, from the brink. And we've been holding it down ever since. You know what I mean? We've been holding it down ever since. But nah, man, it's all in fun and love. But what I want to compare that to and get your thoughts on, Gerald, is how the women, who were not, you had the one scene where she wore the weave, but other than that, you're talking about they look like you and I in the head, right? You bald-headed women, strong characters. Not, there were some, scenes of where they're dressed up and things like that, but otherwise they're in warrior kind of gear, warrior mode. So it wasn't an over sexualized, film or anything like that. There's no sex scene, and oftentimes our black women are portrayed as objects. Going back to your point of, how black men are perceived and often promoted to the world, African American women, to contrast that, are often promoted in a certain way, sexual objects, kind of just the lonely kind of hood baby mama, loud and, and of course you've had Tyler Perry scrutinized at that, Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, and everybody in the comedic industry has been scrutinized for that, and in some cases rightfully so. But what are your thoughts on the beauty? Because now I'm seeing people, and again going back to my joke of Wesley and G Money and Christopher Williams and all that, I'm seeing people now regard that as beauty, right? Yeah. Where in the past, it wasn't. You had to look like Lisa from Coming to America. It was considered the standard of beauty.
I don't have a huge opinion on that, and that's just because I have my own personal preferences when it comes to those things. Yeah, and it has always been, black has always been the most beautiful thing in the world to me. I take a look at my wife on my Facebook page. I loved a beautiful dark skinned woman. So when I saw this movie, that was just like, yep, that's exactly who should be in those roles, but that's my own personal preference. I think that the idea, when we talk about colorism, right, the colorism thing is typically the lighter skin and the more European look is what gets the parts and what gets the roles and what is considered beautiful and this, that, and the other. But when I bring me into it, I experience the exact same thing, only it's different. My vision of what is beautiful is darker and more natural, and so I have a bias, an internal bias that is against the lighter and more European look. That being the case, I don't think it's right for me to speak on it, just like it wouldn't be right for somebody coming on here and saying like, I like a woman with that light complexion and that good hair and all this kind of stuff. Right. My preference is the exact opposite of that, but for me to say that any light-skinned woman or a woman who has, a different texture of hair, anything like that, well, that's not as beautiful as the women that were on the screen. All of black women in our community are absolutely wonderful, beautiful, and gorgeous.
Yes.
We have our preferences. My preferences just don't happen to go with what society has tried to tell me is beautiful. I just see it differently.
Right, exactly. Well, and I know for me, for my wife, and we're coming up, this is our 11th year come June. And, everybody in the free world seen, my wife on the Facebook page. And, she's a beautiful, dark-skinned woman. And, I've had, preferences that have varied maybe over the years, but I've always come back to just a strong-willed, mentality black woman, a tenaciously gifted, tenaciously strong, tenacious mindset to wanting to have beyond just materialistic living and things like that. So I'm definitely with you there. And, I really, again, man, Gerald, I love the way women were portrayed in it. And it's not just to get into the sensationalized piece of, the Me Too movement and some of those kind of things. I think they can all tie in. But what I hope is that, again, like we talked earlier, that it inspires that level of characterization in movies going forward. So when we do get to a point where we have control of the entire process, we don't then emulate what we saw for the first 100 years.
Right.
Yeah, that's my fear, right? Is we progress to that point and then we go back because we think we become seduced by what they are. They being, those that are in power now, of the dollar and what's going to sell quick. And if they get a sense that, or a couple of these don't work, maybe depending, and there's a slew of reasons why, but they put strong characters in the movie, it don't work, if they don't get their money back, do they revert to, and this is not just not Tyler Perry, but do they get to, Madea goes to Wakanda? You know what I mean? Yeah. I saw someone joke on that Tyler Perry's probably gonna come with that.
Definitely don't want to see that. I would say just me thinking through this whole thing, right? It's just I feel like when we get to the point where we own our media, I think it'll be extremely important for us to find some way to represent all of that, all of what is blackness, right? Because we have people in the community who I was just up in Sioux Falls, South Dakota the other day, speaking at a Black Wealth seminar and connecting with some great folks up there. And I met a woman named Heather who, if you look at her just out of any context, she could choose to live her life as a white woman, right? Could absolutely choose that life. Nobody would question her on it. But one of the most actively defensive of blackness and her blackness and the culture of blackness that I've run across, recently, right? And there's one thing of we don't want to fall prey to the colorism of we're only putting the light-skinned women out there because that's the standard of beauty. But there's also the thing of not saying, well, if you're not a dark-skinned woman, then your blackness is suspect, right? And we got to push you to the back of the line because we want to put our dark-skinned women up front. For a time period, I think that's something that's going to have to happen just to break the cycle. But once we're in control, blackness is blackness. All different shades, colors, creeds, ideas, political views, blackness is blackness. And so we're going to have to find a way at some point to be able to represent all of what we are, men and women. And that diaspora that we have is so different across the globe. And every time you meet somebody who fills a different piece of that role, it's like a little bit of pride. It's just, I didn't even know you were out here. Right. And so at some point, we're going to get to the point where we take control of it and the colorism goes away if we have the right people driving it. And it's just a matter of let's celebrate what it is to be black to you. What are you bringing to this world, and how has your experience differed from me because of whether it's skin tone or whether it's whatever it is? Let's celebrate it, right? Let's celebrate all those different things. I want to get to that point.
Yeah, definitely. Most definitely. So, Gerald, man, I've really appreciated your time and your dialogue with this brother. Love what you do there with your podcast and the different ways that you're striving to connect this community and you work with business owners and that kind of thing. So I thank you so much. Any parting words, any last things or thoughts or anything else you'd like to discuss?
No, nothing huge, man. We're going to have to do this again on my show because we had that other conversation about the spiritual side of this and
okay.
Kind of my out of the box thinking about a way to go forward with Wakanda in my ancestral history. But
okay,
that's another conversation for another day on another show.
Yeah.
But I love this platform. I love the way that you do this with Facebook Live. I'm gonna have to look into doing some live stuff with my podcast because I love seeing the interaction and comments from everybody. I think it's great. So I appreciate you having me on, man. I can't wait to hear it come out and listen to it on the show.
Yeah, definitely. I'll make sure that you have it. Jason Daniels, who actually I did an episode with a few weeks ago, says good afternoon. So definitely good afternoon to you. JD just got back from the 10X conference out in Vegas that I love to hear some more about. And, my family, Cleo Hayes, has joined. Linda says Black Queens, yay. Linda Walton Robinson. So, yep, I agree with you, Linda. That's an astounding yay from all of us. So, again, Gerald Jones has been our guest, man. The BuyBlackPodcast.com is where you need to go right now. Make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you interact with Gerald on his many platforms. Listen, subscribe to the podcast. If you've got ideas, things like that, I'm sure Gerald's open to those. But let's connect. Let's continue to build and download the app. I'm going to go do that now. As soon as we get done with the podcast, my commitment is to go make sure that I can connect with Gerald that way through his app. And again, it doesn't get better unless we commit to the authentic connectivity, y'all. So as long as we just go sit back and talk about problems and, we can do that all day and we can list out 1,000 problems with everything. But man, until we connect, and hopefully this movie, Black Panther, helps us connect. So not just the sensationalized of it's doing well and it's got black cast, but we take this and then apply that as art manifests itself in life. So Gerald Jones, brother, I owe you. I want to be on your show as a guest. So whenever we can make that happen, I'll make myself available for that. Gerald's put the link in here for those who are on Facebook Live. There's a link there that you just added, Gerald. Did you want to explain that real quick? I want to make sure everybody knows where that goes.
So earlier I talked about having been on the Mocha Minutes podcast. It's hosted by Stephanie Williams, and so I just dropped the link for that. The more of our black media platforms we can support, and we can cross-pollinate each other, I'm all about that. And if you're out here, listening and you have something valuable to say and you feel like you don't get enough people to put it in front of, consider starting your own podcast.
Yes.
Right? There is no shortage of space and opportunity in this market for new voices coming at it new ways. So let's build each other up, support each other, and when you come across something good, throw it out there, let other people get their hands on it. So just wanted to give a shout out to Stephanie and her show. Check that out. It is a great episode or a great show to listen to.
Yeah, definitely. Connect with that show as well. I need to go out and listen to that one as well. So my commitment is to do that as well so I can get that content. Gerald's exactly right. Right now I'm on Facebook Live on a Samsung Note 5. I upgraded. I kept the phone. Kept it on my plan. It's a few dollars a month, man, whatever. I kept the phone. I'm using it right now for my podcast, and then I'm recording from a desktop. I'm here in my sunroom. I got my dog running around behind me. He's chewing up books and shit and everything else. The phone's ringing in the background. So there's nothing big and sexy I'm not in no sexy studio. Nothing. You see where Gerald's is? I imagine Gerald's at home or somewhere. So we're not no. Yeah.
Office. This is really my setup.
Yeah. So.
That's it.
So you could do, exactly. So, Gerald makes a point real quick that I want to end on is if you're interested in starting a podcast, you got people here now that have done so. Again, there's nothing, there's no producer in our ears. You know what I mean? Gerald does his show with his own content, whatever the hell he wants to do. I do it on whatever the hell I want to do. Dominic Lawson does on whatever the hell he wants to do. So if you have a voice and you want to put it out, build your media platform through podcasting, Facebook Live, you jump on. I bought this microphone right here that, is capturing my recorded podcast, bought off Amazon. I mean, it's nothing. So Gerald's exactly right. Let your voice be heard. Let's connect, and let's just progress. So Gerald, thank you again so much, brother. I appreciate it. And we're going to wrap this thing up, man. I thank y'all so much.
What we do here is go
man, let's have a great weekend, March the 2nd. Man, this year's already blowing. It's already blowing. Yeah. So before long, it's going to be springtime. What are you going to do to help edify the community and build a business? So do business with a black business this weekend, today. Make sure you do that. Connect on the podcast, and man, let's just be great. That's what Black Panther is about. It's about us being great and inspiring others to be great as well. So with that, Gerald, peace to you, man. Enjoy the rest of your day, brother. We'll talk. And thank y'all so much for joining the Minding Your Business podcast. On next week, we're going to have another topic with another guest. You're not going to want to miss it because it's going to be a bit of a surprise. But I'm going to have an international guest in the music industry from Italy that's going to join. So she's going to be talking about music from here in Memphis to all around the world. She's got a song out. So, man, it's going to be incredible and definitely off the damn chain. I'm your host, Ron Brooks. Appreciate everybody on Facebook Live. Y'all connect with me, share this, listen to the podcast, www.themybpodcast.com. Peace to y'all.